Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ball Oasis show. This is a special episode. This is a very special episode. We're going to go ahead and we're going to start our standings predictions for the upcoming NBA season. This is something that me and Jacob have been wanting to go ahead and do for a while. We've had this in the vault for pretty much over a month. We knew we wanted to do this, but we've really been preparing for this for a really long time. We're starting with the Eastern Conference today, so this will include Jacob's favorite team, the Philadelphia 76ers. So I know he's excited to talk about them. Basically, we're just going to kind of overview these teams and why we have them where we have them on our standings predictions. Of course, the teams at the bottom, we won't go into as much depth as the teams at the top, but it should be a lot of fun. Our list, I expect to look very different because I shuffled mine as soon as yesterday. As recent as yesterday. I've been messing with this list for almost over a week now. It's been a lot of thought that's gone into this. Jacob, are you excited for this?
Yeah, mine's been set for a few days now. I tried not to make too many last minute changes, but it took me a while. It took me 2, 3 pieces of paper to figure it out.
Yeah. No, I was pretty set on my list before the Donovan Mitchell trade, and then that kind of shook some things up, and I had to
Yeah,
rethink. Maybe this team shouldn't be as high, or
right.
maybe put this team above this team. But we're excited to get into it, so let's just go ahead and let's jump right into these standings predictions. Jacob, I'm going to start with you. Who is your bottom seed in the Eastern Conference?
My 15th seed is the Indiana Pacers. Um, Obviously Tyrese Halliburton's there. He's going to take a large role for them. Um, I guess they're most important player right now, especially if Miles Turner and Buddy Hield's going to be on the way out eventually, more than likely. Jalen Smith, young player, I think he'll play. I think he'll have an improved role this season. Like I don't think Miles Turner will play a whole lot, so I think he'll develop really well.
Yep. At 15, I also have the Indiana Pacers. I don't want to spend too much time on them, but Tyrese Halliburton is their bell cow. I expect him to kind of average around 22 points, like 8 assists. His playmaking is great. And like you said, you brought up Jalen Smith. I think Jalen Smith is a good young player, but he just hasn't gotten real opportunity. So he was drafted by the Phoenix Suns, who were a team who was in win now mode. And of course, the Indiana Pacers aren't in win now mode. They have guys, like you said, with Miles Turner. And Buddy Hield, who will probably be on the trade market. They probably won't finish the season as Pacers, which opens more opportunity up for guys like Chris Duarte and Isaiah Jackson, names who aren't very well known, but guys who kind of shined whenever they had the opportunity. But I expect the Pacers to sit somewhere around like 18 wins. I don't expect them to make very much noise in the Eastern Conference. On to number 14, I have the Orlando Magic at number 14 in the Eastern Conference. Of course, they had the number one overall pick, Paolo Banchero. I expect Paolo to come in and average around 20 and 8 his rookie season. I expect them to give him a good share of the touches early on. With the young guards that they have, I'm really looking forward to see which of those young guards kind of emerges because they're all kind of sitting in the same pool right now. You've got Cole Anthony, you've got Jalen Suggs, you've got Markelle Fultz, and you've got R.J. Hampton. They all kind of have equal opportunity, but I think that Jalen Suggs is going to be the guy who kind of takes the step forward this next season. I think that his efficiency will go up, and I think maybe not to the extent of a guy like Darius Garland, but I think Jalen Suggs will really take a significant leap in year two and really kind of hone in on the defensive end. He was decent on the defensive end last year, but I think his defense and his efficiency will only improve. But not much to be said for the Magic. They have solid players. I like Jamal Mosley as a coach, but I have them sitting around like 23 wins. I don't think that they'll make much noise either.
Yeah, I also had the Orlando Magic as my 14th seed. Like you said, Paolo's coming in, he'll make a big impact. I think Wendell Carter Jr. take a jump this year. Maybe not, All Star jump, maybe close to that level, but they're a really young team. I'll really be watching them a lot this year. Uh, like you said, the guard pool is something to keep an eye on too.
Yeah, and they have guys like even Terrence Ross. Terrence Ross is a guy who's been on the
Right.
trade block for a while who will probably be in that rotation. Um, you could add Gary Harris to that too. I guess not now because he's hurt, but guys who are on the trade block as well, who I don't expect to finish the season on the team, although he's kind of been saying that for a few years. but they're a solid young team. I think that they should ride out with this core. I think that they should just keep this rebuild going, and I think that they have a solid start to it, especially being able to pick Paolo Banchero at number 1.
Yeah, I think I had them around 24 wins. I think
about the same.
Yeah.
Your number 13, Jacob. Who you got?
This was tough. I know it's tough for bottom tier. My 13 is the Detroit Pistons.
Okay.
And obviously, Cade Cunningham, very well could be an all-star of the season. We've mentioned it before. They also have a player I'm high on, Saddiq Bey. He played pretty good last year. I enjoyed watching him. I think he had a 50-point game last year towards the end of the year. Jalen Duren, Jaden Ivey. That's another young team in the East that'll be fun to watch. And I think that young core can really make it somewhere in a few years.
Yeah, I agree. I also have the Detroit Pistons at number 13. Like you said, they're exciting. And that's kind of all you can ask for a team who's in rebuild mode. Just give us some excitement. The Detroit Pistons have that. I've said on this channel that I think that Cade Cunningham is going to be an all-star this season. I think his numbers will be good enough too. And I think that he'll just have the hype around him. Of course, you have Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren coming in. And I think a guy who kind of gets overlooked on that team, who has kind of just been overlooked and I think could really make a jump this next season, is Marvin Bagley. This is the prime opportunity for Marvin Bagley to step in and kind of assert himself in an offense. He should start, especially with Jeremy Grant being out the door. So he should have some opportunity. We just haven't really seen him take advantage of that in the past. And I'm just hoping for his sake that he can do that this upcoming season. You go through their starting lineup, though. You've got Jaden Ivey, you've got Cade Cunningham, you've got Saddiq Bey, you've got Marvin Bagley, you've got Isaiah Stewart. That's a solid starting 5. That's not a playoff starting 5, of course. That starting 5 is going to win you some games, and they'll be exciting. They'll be a young, exciting team. I have them sitting somewhere around 27 wins. But I'm excited to watch the Detroit Pistons play basketball this year.
Yeah, me too.
They're one of the young teams that I will be keeping a very close eye on. One team that I will not be keeping a very close eye on this season, coming in at number 12, is the Charlotte Hornets. Maybe you think that's a little low for Charlotte, but I don't know. I'm not a believer in their team, really. You've got LaMelo Ball. He's great. He'll probably be an all-star again. He's going to average the numbers. But just the makeup of the team around him, I'm not sold on it. Of course, Miles Bridges is going to be a huge loss. It's going to be a bigger loss than I think a lot of people think. I think Kelly Oubre will probably step in and be the starter, but that compromises their depth. I do not like the Charlotte Hornets' depth at all. And they didn't really address the center issue, which we kind of talked about over the offseason, which they needed so badly because they're one of the worst defenses in the NBA. They didn't really address that problem, so they will probably be down at the bottom again. They're gonna score. They're gonna score points. LaMelo will score points. Terry Rozier is a guy who's gonna score points. Right. Gordon Hayward can score you some points, and I hope Gordon Hayward kind of has a bounce back year. Maybe he fills that role of Miles Bridges a little bit, and hopefully we can see some good Gordon Hayward minutes. But I mean, just consistently running PJ Washington at your 5 or a young guy like Kai Jones, I'm not really a believer in it. I don't think that's a playoff team. I think they sit at the 12 seed, and I think they win somewhere around like 31 games.
Yeah, I also had Charlotte as my 12 seed. Like you said, I almost put him at 13. Like you said, LaMelo, who started the team, probably get an all-star again. I think PJ Washington could step up. I guess they'll probably start him. They could start him with the 4, Mason Plumlee at the 5. Just with, like you said, Miles Bridges, that's a big blow, especially offensively. But yeah, I'm not very high on them either. I don't like how they built the team up so far.
Yeah, they didn't put themselves in a position to compete, and they were in Donovan Mitchell trade talks, and even then, I probably would have only seen them still as a play-in team, honestly, just because they didn't address their biggest issue, which is defense. They didn't need another small scorer. They've got Terry Rozier to do that. But yeah, the Charlotte Hornets are going to sit that low for me, and I guess you as well. So we haven't differentiated so far, but number 11, I'm almost guaranteeing that we'll differentiate right here. Jacob, give me your number 11.
My number 11 is the Washington Wizards.
Okay, we do differentiate. That's good.
Okay. Obviously they have Bradley Beal who can give you the numbers, Kristaps Porzingis, but kind of want him to I think we said this last episode, play his role a little bit better,
Right.
develop into his role a little bit better. I don't know that they made a few moves in the offseason. I think they brought in was it Monte Morris
They brought in
and
Morris, yeah.
Morris, I think KCP.
KCP is. No.
That's right. That's right. But I'm just not sold on it. I don't know. Might just be the defense for me. And Kyle Kuzma, if you don't have his moments, I'm just not very sold on the Wizards this year.
Yeah, that's understandable. At number 11 for me, though, I have the New York Knicks. I have the New York Knicks at 11, and I really kind of contemplated putting them even above the 10 seed. I wanted to at first, but kind of like Charlotte, I'm not sold on this Knicks team.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because they've had a lot of guys out with injury, and maybe it's because Tom Thibodeau is their coach. And maybe that's kind of a bad thing of me to say because Tom Thibodeau teams tend to compete, but I just don't like the makeup of their team. I think RJ Barrett is great. I think RJ Barrett will have an all-star season this year. I've voiced that on this channel. But outside of that, I don't think that Jalen Brunson has as good as a year as he had last year, honestly. I don't think he does. And I don't think Julius Randle can have another season like he did in the 2020-2021 season. And their depth is just a little scary to me, especially since Tibbs doesn't play young guys. They've got Cam Reddish sitting there who could blossom into a good player in this league, but he just kind of lets them rot. He kind of lets all those young players rot, like Obi Toppin and Emmanuel Quickley. They don't get that much run, and I think that they really should. I just don't think it's the recipe for a whole lot of success. And couple that with the division they play in, with the Sixers, with the Celtics, with the Nets, and with the Toronto Raptors. Right. Got to play them all 4 times this upcoming season. I don't think a lot of those games are going to end in wins. So, me personally, I see the New York Knicks only winning around 37 games. Okay. Yeah. That's kind of my view on the Knicks. I wanted to put them around 500 originally, but I kind of talked myself out of it. If the young guys improve and get more run, then maybe my opinion would change. But I just don't like the makeup of that team. I don't think that they shoot the 3 well. I don't think that they are a great defensive team. I know Tibbs is a defensive coach, but I don't think that their makeup is for a good defensive team, honestly.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
So that's mine. At number 10, I've got the Chicago Bulls at number 10 as the last play-in seed. I've got the Chicago Bulls here. And kind of like the Knicks, I'm not sold on the Bulls. I'm not sold on the Bulls this year. And a lot of that is because of Lonzo Ball's injury status. Whenever Lonzo Ball played last year, the Bulls were one of the best teams in the East because they defended so well. And without Lonzo Ball, their perimeter defense aspect is kind of lacking. They've got Ayo Dosunmu, who kind of stepped in and played minutes last year in his rookie year. I still don't really trust that, though. I know Alex Caruso can play defense.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm not a big believer in that. And then offensively, I think that the Bulls kind of got hot last year. I think at the beginning of the season, they got hot shooting the 3. And then when some guys went down with injury, we saw them struggle from 3, and if they weren't hitting their 3s, there's no chance of them winning the game. There's no chance. A guy like Nikola Vucevic couldn't lock down a thing in the paint. Yeah. So their defense is questionable, and if their offense is questionable when they're not shooting the ball well, I just don't think that's a great recipe. I'm not sold on the Bulls this year, honestly. I think Zach LaVine will get his numbers. I think DeMar DeRozan will get his numbers. I think Patrick Williams will take a step forward. I think that we'll see him become I think he'll have kind of like a DeAndre Hunter type lead this season. I think he'll kind of fit that mold. But honestly, I only see the Bulls winning around 39 games. I have them with a losing record in that last play-in spot.
My number 10 seed, I had the Knicks. Like you said, I'm not too sold on it, but I think Jalen Brunson could have a better year. I know it's kind of hard to do with not beside Luka, but I just have him low because I'm not sold on the depth either. They have a lot of young guys. RJ he played good last year. He did some questionable, I guess, times. I guess, like I said, Julius Randle's probably not going to be back to that most improved player type of year. Um, yeah, I don't know. I could see them sneaking in to maybe the 9 or 8 seed, but it'd be very hard to. They'd have to get hot at the right time.
Yeah, and that's just something I don't think that this Knicks team is capable of. It would have to be on the defensive end that they get hot, and I think that in the interior defense with guys like if Mitchell Robinson plays a full season or close to it, I think that that might be possible. But I just don't see that happening with their injury concerns with him, with Derrick Rose. Um, those are integral pieces on that team, and they kind of scare me a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah. Coming
So,
in, wait, say what you were gonna say.
to my 9 seed
Yeah,
or
you go. You go first.
my number 9 seed, I have the Chicago Bulls. Like you said, the perimeter defense, Vucevic in the paint. I think they did get hot last year at the very beginning. They also were what I can't remember what it was, but they weren't very good at playing good teams above 500 last
They
year.
weren't. They were bad. They're
They
so
yeah,
competitive.
they weren't very good. Um, DeMar had that really good stretch. I think he was in the MVP conversation, top five.
It was.
Um, so yeah, I could very well see them even falling out to play in. Well, I wouldn't go that far, close to it though. They can be that 9, 10 seed for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I had them at 10, and they were above my number 9 for the longest time, but I switched it at the end because I kind of like this team at number 9. I don't know what it is, but at number 9, I've got the Washington Wizards. I kind of like the Washington Wizards. Let's break them down a little bit. They've got
Okay.
Bradley Beal. They've got their go-to guy who can get you 30 a game. That's out of the way. You've got Kristaps Porzingis. Of course, he's a question mark with how he'll play. I kind of saw some good things from him though at the end of last season. So if he could kind of keep that up, maybe the Wizards are in for an okay year. The pickup of Monte Morris, I think that he'll come in and play a solid point guard role. I don't think that that's something that Bradley Beal has had since he had John Wall alongside him. So I think Monte Morris, been a guy who's consistently been on playoff teams with Denver, who started on those teams. I think that he's a good guy to have beside Bradley Beal because he's not going to do too much, but he's going to be just enough for you. And then their wings. Their wings are kind of what sold me. You got Rui Hachimura, who's been kind of hurt, but
Mm-hmm.
he has all the makings of a good defensive wing. He who can get his own, who can create his own shot. I like him a lot. I like Kyle Kuzma a lot. I saw great things from Kyle Kuzma last year as a shooter, as a rebounder. And I even saw him lock up on the defensive end. I didn't watch a whole lot of Washington Wizards games, but I constantly saw Kuz doing good things. That was good to see. With all the flack that he received in LA, I was really happy to see Kuz succeed, and I kind of hope he keeps that up. Denny Abdia. Denny Abdia is a guy who hasn't really been hurt since he was drafted 9th overall by the Wizards a few years ago. I think he's primed to have a great season. He's a great defender. His numbers are unknown in most NBA spheres, but his on-ball defense is in like the 95th percentile for the entire league. So he locks down, and they shoot the ball well. They actually shoot the ball well, but it's just going to be on the defensive end, I guess. Um, their center play is a little questionable, especially losing Thomas Bryant. Um, and they had Montrezl Harrell at the beginning of the year last year, so losing guys like that. But I like this Washington Wizards team. I think that they're a team who has the recipe to get hot. I think that they have that recipe. And I know I've talked a lot about the Wizards, and I probably shouldn't have talked about them this long, but I have them around 40 wins. I have them right below 500 at the 9 seed, and I think that they could win a play-in game over a team like the Bulls.
Yeah, I kind of agree. If they get hot at the right time, it really helps. I think I'd still have the Bulls in a playing game over them, but I don't know. Bradley Beal could have one of those games.
Right. Out of all the players in that game, in that hypothetical game between the Bulls and the Wizards, I probably trust Bradley Beal the most. So that might be the reason why. But all those teams out of the way, we have the top 8 now. And this is kind of what we're here for. So let me give you my number 8 first, Jacob. I really hate that I have this team here because I think that they're really good and they constantly exceed their preseason expectations. But on paper, I just think that the 7 teams ahead of them are better than them. And at number 8, I have the Toronto Raptors. I have the Toronto Raptors at number 8. And they have depth concerns. I know Nick Nurse only runs like a 7-8 man rotation, something crazy. Yeah. But I just don't think that's the recipe for success. I think that kind of burns guys out. And maybe that works for the start of the season. But I don't know. The Raptors, it's kind of like I said, they're just not as good as the teams above them. Other teams got better in the Eastern Conference. And I just feel like the Raptors didn't really do much. They had Otto Porter Jr. But outside of that, they didn't really do anything.
Yeah. So do you want to do like my 8, your 8, so that we don't like how we've been doing, or switch it?
Let's just keep doing it like we've been doing it, unless you want to do it a different way.
I didn't matter because I was like the top 8. I could do my 8, then you could do your 8 instead of like 8 and 7.
No, I want the suspense. I want all of the suspense.
Okay, so my 8. Oh, I have the Atlanta Hawks.
Okay.
It was tough. It was tough to put them at 8, but we have to see how Trey and DeJounte play together. Which I think they fit pretty well, but like you said, the East is stacked, so I really can't say anything bad about them. DeJounte makes up for Trey's defense, I guess, but their perimeter defense wasn't too good last year. I guess DeJounte will help that a little bit, but we'll just have to see how it goes. I think if they, like we've said with the other teams, if they get real hot, which they can, they honestly can move up way farther in the East than we have them, in my opinion. Well, I don't know where you have them, but where I have them.
Yeah. And this is a team that we've seen get hot, so we know for sure that they can. We've seen them go to the conference finals. Coming in at number 7, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. The Atlanta Hawks are my number 7. And I just believe in them a little more than the Raptors because I think that Trae Young is one of the top – he's a top at least 15 player in the NBA, I think. He's a guy who a 30-a-night guy who just picks apart defenses. And I like a lot of his surrounding pieces. I like the addition of DeJounte Murray a lot. There's some questions with kind of his role on the team because he's been a ball-dominant guard in the past. But I don't think that's going to be that big of a deal. I think DeJounte Murray is going to be a good I think Trae Young is a good lead guard, and I think DeJounte Murray will accept that role of being the secondary guard. I don't think that will be a big problem. I'm one of the biggest believers in the world in DeAndre Hunter. I think that he has great potential. I think that he could be an all-star someday, honestly. Probably not this upcoming season, but I like him as their 3. They keep John Collins. They keep Clint Capella. That's a great starting lineup. That's an incredible starting lineup. It's just their depth that has them this low for me. They lost DeLon Wright, and I think DeLon Wright was actually one of the key pieces to their team last year because he was the kind of the stabilizing force on defense, especially on the perimeter. And I think their perimeter defense might suffer a little bit with Bogdan Bogdanović being the only other real guy in that backcourt who plays significant minutes. The loss of Kevin Huerter. The loss of Kevin Huerter might prove to hurt their three-point shooting. I think that they'll be a solid three-point shooting team, but I mean that's just another guy out of their rotation. And Onyeka Okongwu is a guy who I'd like to see get more minutes because I think that he's that good. I kind of wish that they would go ahead and dish Clint Capella to give Onyeka Okongwu that opportunity because in his minutes he's been great, especially alongside Trae Young. But their depth is just a little scary. They also lose Danilo Gallinari, so I don't know. They're my number 7.
Yeah, but I saw a stat. I think that Trae and Okongwu's stats were better than Trae and Capella's. Like I guess I forgot what it was, but them playing together was better than Trae and Capella. So I can easily see that.
Yeah.
So my number 7 seed, I have the Toronto Raptors.
Okay.
A lot of, I guess, bigger wings or a lot of bigger players in the starting lineup that can play defense. Great coach, probably one of the best in the league, in my opinion.
Right.
Like you said, they do. I think they have one of the better starting 5s. I wouldn't put them, way up there, but I like their starting 5 with Van Vliet, Trent, I guess OG and Scotty, and then Pascal at the 5.
Yeah.
That's my only. Yeah, that's my only worry about them. They didn't make any big moves. I think Otto Porter Jr. and I think that was it. but Siakam at the 5 just doesn't really sit well with me.
Mm-hmm.
So that I kind of have him at 7. Just I give him a slight edge over Atlanta. I think their record's like right there. I think I just had Toronto win like the season series.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the only, like you said, the depth. The depth is I could have put them a lot lower with their depth because they don't have very good depth.
Yeah. Win totals for those teams. I did only have the Hawks 2 games better than the Raptors. I have the Hawks at 46 wins, and I have the Raptors at 44. But yeah, kind of like you said. I also just think because the Hawks have been there, a lot of those players
Right.
have already been to the Eastern Conference Finals. So we know that they have that in them. And the farthest we've seen this current Raptors team go outside of Fred and Siakam really is the first round. It's kind of all that there is to it, really. And OG, I'll throw OG in there too. He didn't play the finals here, but he got to the second round of the bubble.
Okay.
And I also think with that Raptors team too, I think Precious Achiuwa will be really good for them. I think he will be a good sixth man for them this upcoming season. On to number 6. I want you to give me your number 6 first.
My number 6, I have the Brooklyn Nets.
Dang it.
You have there too?
I've got Brooklyn too. I didn't want you to have Brooklyn at 6. Dang. Talk about the Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah, I say on paper, they could have like on paper they could have one of the best teams in the league, arguably the title favorites. But chemistry, I don't believe in it. I don't believe in this team's chemistry. KD and Kyrie wanted out. Ben Simmons is there, so it doesn't make it much better. Ben Simmons will be the 5 more than likely. It'll be okay with him at the 5, but it'll be some teams that he won't match up well with against the 5, and Nick Claxton won't be a whole big difference. And they also got a lot of players coming off of injuries, or that have had injury concerns over the last few years. But my big thing was chemistry. They could be the 1 seed for half the year, then explode 1 week, and it just go downhill from there. Obviously, they wanted Steve Nash out, so we'll see how he handles, I guess, the team in the locker room and see where they go. But yeah, they're at my 6th seed.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I have the Brooklyn Nets at 6 too. I really wanted us to disagree on that one, but kind of like what you said, the concerns just with availability are why they're this low for me. And I also think that, they added new players. Ben Simmons has still never stepped on the floor for them.
Right.
They added some new players over the offseason with T.J. Warren being the headliner of that group. Chris O'Neal also. And I think that it will take some time to gel. And I think that Steve Nash will play with his rotations early on in the season. I think that it will look very different as we get closer to playoff time. So I think that the Nets, this is my thing with the Nets. I think the Nets are going to start out slow. I think the Nets are going to be under 500 until about, or at least hovering around it, until about January, maybe even close to February, the All-Star break. But then they're going to hit it. They're going to hit this streak. And maybe that's kind of dumb to say because I think that they'll be active at the trade deadline and they'll only add new pieces to kind of get acclimated. But I think for the existing guys, I think guys like Ben Simmons and Kyrie who haven't played that much, I think that's what they need is that adjustment period. And then whenever they get adjusted, it's go time. It's time for them to take off. But I have the Brooklyn Nets win total the exact same as the Atlanta Hawks at 46. But I think that the Brooklyn Nets will win the season series. Mm-hmm. I think that they play a game towards the end of the season, which will turn out to be a big deciding game, who's in the play-in and who's not. And I think the Brooklyn Nets, I think KD and Kyrie will really lock in for that game. And I think that they'll get the job done. But this is a team, if they get hot at the right time, can compete with anybody. We know that they can compete with anybody. If they're healthy, if they get hot at the right time, look out for the Brooklyn Nets because they will be there. If they get matched up with, I'd say that there's only 2 teams here that they would match up with that I feel like the other team would kind of just win outright.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I'm kind of the opposite. I think they're going to start out hot,
really,
and then kind of go down. But
you just think because of the drama?
That, but I really just need to see how Ben Simmons fits in with it. I guess at the five,
That's true.
like where he bring up the ball up, Kyrie bring the ball up. In Philly, Ben had the ball in his hand most of the time. He was the facilitator. So I just have to see how that is, and that drama is another part of it. I just don't see it working. Now
Yeah.
they are like a top two seed, and prove me wrong, but I just don't see it working. I also had around 47 wins, I think.
Yeah. There's a lot of question marks with the Brooklyn Nets for sure, as we always know over the past few years there has been. But if they could just reach that potential, I mean, we saw them in the playoffs 2 years ago. They almost beat the Bucks,
Right.
and I mean, they were that close to being in the Eastern Conference Final Series. Who did the Bucks play that year in the conference finals? Why can't I think? They played Atlanta.
Atlanta, yeah.
And I think Brooklyn would have beaten Atlanta, and they would have been on their way to the finals.
Yeah, I think
So
they had injuries against the Bucks. That's what
right,
did it
James
too.
Harden was playing with one leg basically.
I think Kyrie was out after game two, maybe one or two, maybe.
Yeah, Kevin Durant was going God mode. But yeah, that's the Brooklyn Nets. At number 5, I'll give my number 5 first. I've got the Cleveland Cavaliers at number 5.
Okay.
I've got the Cavs at number 5. I really wanted to put them higher because I think that their team is incredible. I think their team is amazing. I think that they're built for success. Um, I do have some questions though, just because of their youth. I think that their youth is just the only question. I wish that they would have made the playoffs last season. I
Yeah.
wish that they would have gotten that experience. I hate that they lost in the play-in like they did, with Jared Allen being injured for the end part of the season, and them picking up Karis LeVert, so he had to kind of acclimate on the fly. But this is a Cleveland team now. You got Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Isaac Okoro. Isaac Okoro will probably start at the 3, and
Yeah.
then you Mobley and Allen, and you'll bring in Karis LeVert off the bench as your 6th man. Not to mention Kevin Love. Cedi Osman's on that team. They've got such a solid team. I'm a believer in the Cavs. I think that playoff experience is going to hurt them this season. But I have them at around 49 wins. I think that Darius Garland's going to be the best player on that team. Actually, I don't think
I
Donovan
can see
Mitchell.
it.
I don't think Donovan Mitchell's going to be the best player. I think that it'll take him some time to get acclimated. But I think Darius Garland is going to be the guy that makes everything go still.
I can see that. My number 5 seed, I have the Miami Heat.
Okay.
I'm kind of glad we went different right here
Yeah.
because so Miami Heat, they're normally a good regular season team no matter what. They're normally always in the playoffs. They always play good. My main thing with them is they didn't improve.
Mm-hmm.
They got worse. They lost PJ Tucker, which some people that's not a big thing, but
Oh, trust it is.
people that don't just look at stats know that's a very big thing. And their depth at the 4 is really bad. I think Jimmy Butler's going to start at their 4.
Yeah.
So after that, I think I forgot his name. Uh, the rookie they drafted,
Jovic.
Jovic. They said he might get some time. Omer Yurtseven, I think, his name. Yeah, they said he might get some more playing time this year. I think Kyle Lowry kind of he's on the decline. I said before it's not a bad decline, but I think it's getting there. Like I don't know. I just have to see him play better this year because he had moments last year where he looked really bad.
Yeah.
So I got them at 5. I think I had them around 48 wins.
Yeah. For Cleveland at my number 5, I had Cleveland winning 49 games. I had Cleveland winning 49. And at my number 4, I have Miami at number 4. They're at my number 4. Like you said, they didn't really address some of their weaknesses, which Miami should be a hotbed for free agents, but
Right.
they didn't get anybody. And the loss of PJ Tucker, like you said, is going to prove to be bigger than it may seem. Maybe bigger in the playoffs than the regular season, and that's kind of why I still have Miami at number 4. Because in the regular season, they're going to win games. They've got that formula. Jimmy Butler is going to be good enough to win them. I have them winning 51 games. I think that Jimmy Butler by himself is good enough to bring a team to the playoffs. Then you add Bam. You add those guys who grind on the defensive end, bring that heat culture. I think in the regular season they'll be okay. but it's going to be playoff time this year where I'm not a believer in them. I've got the Cavs at my 5, and if the Heat and the Cavs play in the playoffs, just based off what we see right now, I know the Cavs don't have experience. I think that would be a 7-game series, and I might lean towards the Cavs, honestly.
I would too.
It would because you can only rely on Jimmy Butler for so long, and we've seen that he can go for his 40-point games, but there's just not a winning formula at the end of the day. It's not a sustainable winning formula.
All right. Yeah, I can see that. I'd have them in 7 too. So my number 4 team, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Like you said, they're a young team, and basically in the playoffs last year before injuries hit them. You add Donovan Mitchell, I guess you could say one of the best, if not the best, offensive backcourt in the league. The only thing with them is the perimeter defense with them, which I know we've said that Evan Mobley and Jared Allen kind of overcome that, I guess, for the paint defense or interior defense. Bench isn't bad. I think
they're good.
Yeah, I got them sitting, I think, at 49 wins. I think they can get hot. I think Donovan Mitchell can have that stretch where he gets real hot. And obviously, Evan Mobley can take a jump this year. I kind of mentioned him before. I don't know about being an all-star this year. Could be potentially be an all-star this year.
I agree.
So I think, like you said, regular season, I think they'll win a lot of games, but the playoffs, the experience will come in because Donovan Mitchell's the only one that's actually had, I think, playoff time out of the whole, besides Kevin Love. But
yeah, Donovan Mitchell's playoff track record outside of the bubble has not been very good at all.
Yeah.
Kind of with the perimeter defense that you brought up, that's why I think Isaac Okoro is going to be the starter. Isaac Okoro was a guy who last year he locked up on the defensive end, and I think that he'll be able to make up for what Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell lack to an extent. Of course, he won't be able to make up for everything, but they've got those 2 bigs in the interior who are going to lock down the paint. So they're going to force teams to shoot threes, and if the opposing team makes threes, I think that they're fine with losing that way. But if they're forcing their opponents to live and die by the 3, I think that they're cool with that.
And a lot of times they'll probably stagger Allen and Mobley too, so that'll help the second unit a lot too.
Yeah, I agree. One more point about the Miami Heat I wanted to make. I think that their season is going to be heavily dependent on what Victor Oladipo looks like this season.
Yeah, I forgot to mention him too.
Yeah, I think that Victor Oladipo is going to be a huge factor. He kind of is thrown in that backcourt. You got Gabe Vincent, you've got Tyler Hero, you got Kyle Lowry, and then you've got Victor Oladipo. I think that he's a guy. He played well in the playoffs. He kind of found his footing again. I don't like Tyler Hero starting, so I think that Victor Oladipo will be a starter on that Miami Heat team. I think he will.
Yeah.
I think if he plays well, I could see them, possibly making another Eastern Conference Finals run. But I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, I can see that. I think I don't know how I feel about it, but Duncan Robinson could kind of have a role this year if he kind of gets his minutes back. But he did get played off the court last year.
Yeah, I think that they're content with playing Max Strus in his place whenever it really matters. I think Max Strus just does what Duncan Robinson does, and then some on the defensive end.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. All right, top three. This is what Jacob's been waiting for. Jacob, you go first with your number 3. I think you might know who my number 3 is, but give me yours first. Give me yours first.
My number 3, I have the Milwaukee Bucks.
Oh.
That's your number 3?
Why are the Milwaukee Bucks your number 3?
Well, obviously they have Giannis, so you could argue the number 1 seed, but
yeah,
they added Joe Ingles. I will say it's hard. I guess the cruise control factor that they normally do, try to keep everybody healthy through the regular season, kind of cut minutes back. Brook Lopez, I'm of the belief that I think Bobby Portis may take that 5 spot this year.
Okay.
Or they might run, I guess, Giannis at the 5, Bobby at the 4, maybe.
They do that sometimes.
You can kind of throw Grayson Allen or Pat in at the 2, I'm guessing. Maybe Wesley Matthews at the 2, 2 or 3, at the 2 or 3. I don't know. I will go ahead and say it. My top 3 seeds are difference between, I think, 1 or 2 games.
Okay.
So
can I let you on a secret real fast?
Yeah.
There is a 6-game difference between my top 3 seeds. I think that there is a gap.
I almost got bold. My first number 1 seed. I almost got bold. I almost did that. I almost got very bold. But the top 3 in the East, really the East is just stacked. But I think the top 3, especially, got a lot better this offseason. A few of them have. Well, 2 of them have. You can say Milwaukee could be healthy this year too, with Chris Middleton coming back. But they'll win games. But I think that it was hard to do this. I just think the cruise control, because I can't think of a reason that they're not like they could be number 3 besides the cruise control right now. Depth maybe, but the depth isn't too bad. But I don't know. It's just with the other 2 teams I got at 1 and 2, I got them in the 3 seed. That's the easiest way to put it for right now. Now when I get to those other teams, that it could explain it more maybe.
Okay, my number 3. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
You know.
I don't know.
Jacob, your team is the number 3 seed. The Philadelphia 76ers are my number 3 seed. Here's why. On paper, we talked about this, Jacob, countless times. On paper, the Sixers probably have the best team in the NBA. Talent-wise, I think they do. You've got some chemistry to worry about. You've got some injury issues to worry about. You've got newcomers, and you've got Doc Rivers as your head coach. I think those are the big things that kind of limit the 76ers. I'm going to let you talk more about them whenever.
Yes, I'll get to that when we get there.
Yeah, because I know you have a lot to say about that. But they're at my number 3. I have them winning 53 games. I have them going 53-29. Mainly just because the acclimation period, and I think kind of like the Brooklyn Nets. I think that they're a team who's going to play up to their competition better in the playoffs. I think that they'll have that chemistry by then. And if they don't have injury issues, nobody in their right mind would want to play the Philadelphia 76ers.
With Milwaukee, I had them at 51 wins. Same record as last year.
Wow.
Okay, so the reason I did that, I tried not to stack the East, the top of the East, with a lot of wins, just because the East is so stacked.
You're right.
So, the 2, 3, and 4 seed last year all had the same record.
Mm-hmm.
Miami was, I think, 2 games ahead, 1 or 2 games ahead.
Yeah.
And the East got better. So I don't see a team in the East winning. They won't win over 55 games, I don't think. Now for you, they might. I messed with it. I almost did, but I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and get our number 2s out of the way because we have the same number 2. It's the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics are the number 2 team. The team that made the finals last year. We've kind of talked about this a little bit, but one thing I want to bring up that we haven't brought up about the Celtics, we know they got hot. They got hot at the right time.
Yeah.
But they were one of those teams that lived and died by the 3. They did. In the playoffs especially, they lived and died by the 3. We saw that in the final series. We saw that especially in the Bucks series. If they have one bad shooting game in that Bucks series, they lose to just Giannis by himself, basically. Giannis beats them by himself in that series. If Grant Williams doesn't get hot in that Game 7, they lose. They lose that series.
Yeah.
Celtics are a great team. With all that being said, the Celtics are a great team. I love their makeup. I think that their guards, their pool of guards collectively is probably the best in the NBA.
Yeah, I can see that.
I think that they are. Well, I don't know. I kind of threw Jason Tatum in there. I'd say players who can play in the backcourt, I'd say that they have the best. Jason Tatum can play in the backcourt, although he's listed as a frontcourt player.
Yeah.
The Celtics, we know what they do defensively. The Celtics clamp defensively. They've got Marcus Smart, who was the Defensive Player of the Year last year. They've got Robert Williams in the interior. Jason Tatum, who's a certified clamper now. They've got Coach Ime Udoka, who that's his philosophy. We're gonna lock you up.
Right.
But just because they live and die by the 3, it scares me. I think that they'll be a good regular season team. I think that they'll win 54 games. But this year in the playoffs, I have the Sixers at my number 3 seed. A second round matchup between the Sixers and the Celtics, I'm taking the Philadelphia 76ers as of today.
I
I'm
know a lot.
taking probably 6 games.
I know a lot of people be shocked to hear that from you.
Yeah. I just it's just the style they play offensively. I think whenever the game gets into the half court, I think the Celtics become stagnant. I think that they play a little too much iso ball. I think maybe Malcolm Brogdon can remedy that a little bit because he's a good playmaker, and the Celtics haven't really had a great playmaker at the point guard position. Marcus Smart was decent last year.
Yeah.
It's yet to be seen, so I can't really say for sure. So because of that, I would probably pick the Sixers in a playoff series right now.
Okay, yeah, Boston. My thing is, we know what they can do defensively, but they started out very slow last year. They normally do, I think, kind of what Jason Tatum does. You could say Boston in general starts out a little slow every year,
Yeah.
then they pick it up. In the playoffs, I don't see Al Horford repeating what he did last year against Milwaukee. I think he had 30 points one game.
Yeah.
I could be crazy. I don't see him doing that again.
I don't think you're crazy.
Grant Williams, I think, had a good game that series like that. I think he had, I forgot what his high was that series.
He had like 7 threes in game 7.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it was like one of those games. Like you said, the I don't know, the coach, the defense, it's all there. Malcolm Brogdon's a big pickup. Will really help the bench, especially in the playmaking. You could even throw him, I guess, not sit Marcus Smart, but you can throw Brogdon in with the starters a lot too, and that really helped them a little bit more.
Yeah.
But you do lose the defense with taking Smart out. Robert Williams, I think, he's improving. I'm a big fan of him, especially watching him last year. I know he has some injuries, but watching him play in the paint, I wouldn't want anybody any smaller player just trying to drive on him because he can get up so high for blocks. We saw that last year.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I got him in my number 2 seed. I got them around 52 wins, 53 wins.
Okay.
Oh, in the playoffs, I would say in the playoffs, Philly. I'll take Philly and Milwaukee over Boston, but I think Boston could beat any other team in the East in the playoffs, unless Brooklyn just, I don't know, unless they just shock everybody and get chemistry right, I guess.
I will say it's weird because I said for Brooklyn that I can only see 2 teams whenever Brooklyn's playing at their best beating them, and Boston and Milwaukee are the 2 teams. And I just said I think Philly would beat Boston in a playoff series, but I couldn't see Philly beating Brooklyn when they're at their best just outright. It's all matchup based. Whenever the playoffs, it's so matchup based, and these standings are going to be way off because teams are going to play for matchups.
Right.
So a team who's better might, drop down a little bit just because they want to play a certain team in the playoffs. That's just how the NBA works.
I think we said Milwaukee might have did that last year, kind of, because at the end of the year they did sit players when their East race was so close.
Yeah.
I think for Philly, the main team I'm nervous about in the playoffs is Brooklyn, and I'm not very high on them. Just KD, Kyrie, that defensively, it'll be hard.
Yeah.
But offensively, I think, I don't know. That's the matchup I'm worried about. But the Bucks and the Celtics, I'm more comfortable with, I think.
Yeah. All right. Our number 1. I've got about 10% battery left on my phone, so I'm going to go through mine quick so you have some time to talk about your number 1, which is my number 1 is the Milwaukee Bucks. This is all I'll say about the Bucks. I have them winning 59 games, which is 5 more than anybody else. When the Bucks are healthy, they win in the regular season. That's just what they do. We saw in 2020 they had the best record in basketball.
Right.
I think that their depth has improved. I love that they brought Wesley Matthews back. If Joe Ingles gets healthy by the time the playoffs come around, I think that he'll be a big piece of that team. Drew Holiday, of course, we know what he does. Chris Middleton, we know what he does. You don't have to mention Giannis because he's the best player in the world. I think that their big position is just the only thing that kind of scares me. Kind of like what you said about Brook Lopez. He might be overtaken by Bobby Portis. Right. I think that they can become a little too reliant on the 3 sometimes, the 3 ball. But they have a Giannis to fall back on. The Celtics don't have a guy like Giannis who they can fall back on when the threes aren't falling. And then the Bucks defense, I just think the Bucks defense is going to be elite. They play in the Central Division. The only other team who I think is going to give them some comp in that division is the Cavs. The other teams are the Bulls, the Pacers, and the Pistons. So I've got the Bucks winning 59 games in the regular season, and at full health, I still think they're the best team in basketball.
Okay, I can see that. So the 76ers is my number 1 seed. I had them winning 55 games.
Okay.
My biggest thing with them is Doc Rivers as a coach. We saw last year he don't like to play young guys a lot. That'll change this year because we added a lot of depth, I think. I still think we had the best offseason, personally, with DeAnthony Melton, Daniel House, P.J. Tucker, and Montrezl Harrell, I think, a few weeks ago, which the backup five is a big question for us. I think fully healthy, I think we could be the best team in the East, and I have us coming out the East because I think Joel didn't get injured last year until the playoffs, until the Toronto series. The only time he missed it was COVID. And now you have a backup five that he doesn't have to play all those minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think, because I think his usage was the highest in the NBA last year.
It was.
I'm also believe that James Harden will be healthy. And I won't say MVP year, but I'll say he'll play better. Tyrese Maxey can take another jump. I just think we have the best team in the East, in my opinion. Even playoffs, like you said, matchups. I think we match up well with anybody, especially with Joel Embiid. In the playoffs, I think Giannis is the only person guarding Joel I'm kind of worried about because they match up pretty well, I think, guarding each other.
Yeah.
But it'd be hard to double team them now because now they put shooters around Joel. Well, I won't say consistent shooters, but better shooters that we've had. This is probably the deepest team Joel ever played with, I think. So I think it'll really take us far in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I would agree. From an on-paper standpoint, I think that the Sixers have the most talent in the NBA. I just think the Bucks are still the best team. I gotta see the Sixers. I gotta see what the Sixers look like on the floor.
Yeah, I would say chemistry is a big part too, because James Harden played 21 games last year. Now we're having a full 82. So I think by playoff time they should have it figured out, chemistry wise.
Well, all right, that is the Eastern Conference standings. We differentiated. There's not much differentiation you can have whenever there's only 15 teams, but I was pleased, especially with the top three. I was excited to talk about the top three.
Right.
We'll have Western Conference next week. I'm still so lost at what I'm going to do with the Western Conference because 1 through 10 is just a bloodbath of good teams. There are only like 2 or 3 great teams in the Western Conference, and everybody else is just good. So it's going to be interesting for sure. We can't wait to get that out for y'all. Thank y'all for listening to this one, watching us. And yeah, we'll see y'all next week.
See y'all.
Peace out.